So the MegaMan Zero and ZX Legacy Collection have just been released on Switch, Xbox One, PS4, and Steam, and that makes me very, very happy. I'm planning on covering the Zero series and later on the ZX duology at a later date, but to give some first impressions of those videos, these games are some of my favorites when it comes to the Mega Man platformers, with two of my favorite games in the series being Zero 3 and ZX1. And when they decided not to put the DS Mega Man games on the Wii U Virtual Console, I'm not gonna lie, that was really disappointing. But hey, that doesn't matter anymore. We've got this now, and this is arguably better! Mega Man is one of my favorite series of platformers, and having all of the main games in the series, minus Mega Man and Bass, but I'm not losing any sleep over that one, all on my Switch is a great feeling to have. Something I wasn't much a fan of with the Legacy collections of the Classic and X series were how they were split in two, with the second part of the X Legacy collection being 75% sloppy seconds in my personal opinion. But thankfully this time, they figured since the Zero series only had 4 games and ZX only had 2, they'd put it on one disc/cartridge. That was a much better decision in my eyes. Not to mention the Zero and ZX series have the most in terms of consistent quality in my eyes, so it's incredibly easy to go from Zero 1 to ZX Advent with very little, if any, major issues. In fact, some new additions have been added to these games. For example, there's a casual mode meant for those who just want to enjoy the story, which is a-okay in my book. As much credit as I'll give these games, I wouldn't exactly call them beginner-friendly. So having a casual mode for people who are just looking for a new series of platformer to get into, this is more than welcome. Not to mention, since ZX and ZX Advent were originally DS games, you can control what would have been the stylus by using the right analog stick and clicking it in to act as the touch effect. There's also how there are a number of screen options available for all of the games, to the point where the default screen setup for ZX and ZX Advent are like how most Let's Players would be recording a DS game with a capture card. Now that's class. Not to mention, for all of the games, you can turn on a checkpoint system in the area, and once you go past one and die, you can just go back to that checkpoint, effectively getting rid of the live systems and retry chips, which I'm 100% okay with. Lives are pretty archaic in design, to be honest, and I can respect current games making better alternatives for game overs. Something else I really enjoy about this collection is the update to the animated cutscenes and voice acting in ZX and ZX Advent. Being on the DS originally, these were incredibly compressed and fairly messy. However, these games allow for animation and audio to be shown in a proper, high-definition way without compromising the size. As such, considering how often I played ZX Advent on the DS, even though I know these lines weren't re-recorded, they almost sound like they came from completely different people.
Who are you? What's this kid doing here? Who are you? What's this kid doing here?
Aside from having 6 games in one package, the major addition this game adds is Z-Chaser. Sort of like the X Challenge, but instead of fighting 2 different Mavericks at the same time, you need to race to the Mutos Reploid or Pseudoroid, depending on if you're playing a Zero or ZX game, waiting for you at the end, and you can even race against a friend. To make that easier, you've got everything you can unlock in these games. All of the EX skills in 0, 2, 3, and 4 to make killing enemies quicker and much more fun. All of the biometals with the longest weapon energy they can have, and that's a ton of fun. Not to mention this is actually manageable and not absolute hell to go through on the hard mode like the X Challenge. Vital Mark 2, hi Max, you both can kiss my ass! Alright, the reasons having the EX skills matter so much to me here is for this. I ultimately don't want to go too in-depth with my thoughts on this since I've been planning on making a Zero series review since long before the Zero and ZX Legacy Collection got announced, but I'll just leave it at this. Getting the EX skills in 0, 2, and 0, 3 feel incredibly hard to manage, especially if you're like me and suck at video games. Just being able to use these skills without jumping through, at points, arbitrary hoops just makes it much more enjoyable to use. Ultimately, this whole Legacy Collection thing has been really nice so far. I was originally on the fence with the original Legacy Collection, since the only version I was aware of at initial announcement was the 3DS version, which I found kinda pointless since I already had Mega Man 1 through 6 on the 3DS Virtual Console. So while it definitely wasn't for me at the time, currently I can really appreciate why it exists. Though my eyes were really glued to Legacy Collection 2, since it had Mega Man 8, 9, and 10, games that I had next to no experience with. And with the release of the X Legacy Collection, I was able to get those games, and they were like the only way I stayed sane during my second semester at college. Having all of the main Mega Man games in one place is something I can really appreciate, and I hope this leads the way for other collections, such as the Legends do with Misadventures of Tron, maybe a pack-in with Battle Network and Star Force. Obviously, just because I think it would be cool to happen and would really like it, doesn't mean that it's gonna happen just like that, or if it even has to happen. But if they are anywhere within the cards at Capcom, I would not be against it. All I can say is, if you're at all interested in platformers with a dark story, without sacrificing enjoyment and character for plot and atmosphere, but instead finding a proper balance, I recommend picking this game up. Currently, this is the definitive way to play these games, all of which I can at the very least give a recommendation. Plus, it's only $30, so it's not like it's going to be a major dent in your wallet if you're on a bit of a budget. It's 6 games for $5 each. More bang for your buck. With that said, I'm Pcuspard, and see you next game.